In this video, I'll try to get across the difficulty that Jesus had and the other 11 apostles had with the 12th apostle, Judas Iscariot, whenever he was behaving according to character, a character which actually becomes more and more difficult as the 3.5 years of Jesus' public ministry progresses, and as we all know from the Gospels, it culminates in the greatest betrayal the world has ever seen and the greatest crime the world has ever seen or could ever see. In addition to giving you that picture, and I'll be reading from a particular episode, it will also be addressing the cleverness of Judas and an interesting take on the problem of evil and what I think is an early form of Calvinism coming out of Judas Iscariot's own mouth. And it gives an insight into the mentality of the children of Israel at the time of Jesus, that they weren't all religious, that many of them were actually secret atheists or near atheists. They disbelieved in various doctrines that were regarded as central to Jewish belief, even though there were many sects with different beliefs. And in fact, it tells us that in our world, we're not so different, that we may have science which purports to give reason to deny or doubt the existence of God. There were plenty of reasons that people had in the pre-scientific period, and in fact the Bible says the fool says in his heart there is no God. So Judas Iscariot will provide an interesting way into looking at that. But in addition to those things, this reading is an opportunity for me to refer you to something which, if you're interested in Maria Valtorta, shows how rich and how detailed her descriptions are and how accurate they are of the topography of ancient Palestine. This is an episode which is chapter 355 of the poem of the man God, and it's called Going Towards Gadara. And it's very useful to have those 5-volume hardback books rather than the 10-volume set, because the chapters do vary, and from language to language they vary as well. But what I've got marries very well with a lot of work that's been done by others looking into the poem of the man God. And there's a particular website which I'd recommend anyone to look at. It's absolutely fascinating. It's called valtortamaps.com. And what it does is, and I don't know who the actual producer of these maps is, it gives a Spanish person with an email address to contact about any, say, inaccuracies about this. But this takes all those episodes of Jesus' ministry, well, it goes from the beginning actually of the poem of the man God to the end, and places each location. Some we don't know exactly, so there'll be a bit of an estimate, but the majority are well-known places now, and they weren't in Maria Valtorta's day, all of them. She provides details which were only discovered after her death, or some which during her life were only known by the absolute specialist. But in this website, maps are created which are drawing the data from her work to show where Jesus was, with which apostles he was at the time, and the movements between places. So in this particular case, the Going Towards Gadara, that's chapter 355, as I said, and here's an example of a map. Now, one of the many maps there are on that website, and if you look at the side, it's got a colour code. When it's Jesus on his own in yellow, Jesus with Mary, there's a kind of bright blue, and then there are other codes for when he's with different apostles. And there's also numbers down the side with dates, which may be difficult to see there. But if I expand it, so we get to, perhaps you can see that there is all the chapter numbers for this particular section of his public life, particular moment of his public life, are there, and they're given dates. I don't know whether those dates are absolutely correct, because there was a Jean Alagnier in the 70s, I think it was 1970s, who produced a timeline of every episode of Jesus' life from the poem with the Man God. But that seems to be not fully accurate, because subsequently an American engineer and another American chap called Dave Webster has started to produce a more accurate timeline. And the American geologist engineer is Thomas Dubay, and there was a Valtorta conference I think 2016 where he said he was working on this and was going to bring out some things, but I haven't seen anything from him, so it would be great if he does finalise what he was producing, a timeline of events. But here we see chapter 355 is down there, and the 355 is given a date, which is 25th of February, and the chapter 355 is up here. So that's where Jesus is, going towards Gadara. So it's near what are called the Sulphur Springs. So that gives you a location. It's south of the of Lake Tiberias, as we can see is Lake Tiberias. This is a map of Palestine, and they've come all the way from Jerusalem to that date, because you can to that time, because you can see all the numbers going up. Actually, I shouldn't say that; it's the wrong way. They're going south from the north down to Jerusalem, because it's 355 is the one I've shown just south of Lake Tiberias, and we get down 356, 357 down to 363 Jerusalem, and then on to Jericho, or near Jericho, and a place called Nike's house. She's the one whose veil was placed on Jesus' face and produced the great image, which may be the veil of Monopolo, may not be, maybe another veil in the St. Peter's itself, housed in a pillar in St. Peter's church in Rome. I'm going to now read then from the episode of Going Towards Gadara. I won't read the whole chapter, but I shall read the introductory, because it's in her introductions to the chapters she often gives a description of where they are, where they're going, what it looks like, and that gives a nice feel for where the scene is located, which the Gospels can't do pretty much, because they have to be extremely concise and brief.